Hello, and welcome back to the Future of Wellness. Today, we're exploring something that's often misunderstood, even among seasoned practitioners.
When most people hear the word energy healing, they imagine there's this singular technique or that it's some kind of a fixed modality. But in actuality, energy healing is rarely that simple.
In practice, energy healing is layered, it's rich, it's alive, it's drawing on the mind, breath, body, and at its core, it's drawing on the subtle intelligence of the energy field.
So, in this episode, we're going to share how we work as facilitators, something that people often ask us about. How is it that we use the field as an interface for healing? How is it that we connect to the different layers and aspects of what's happening energetically during a session?
Whether you're new to energy work or if you're already guiding others, what we're about to explore today is foundational to transformation that actually lasts.
One thing we'll emphasize is why we stand by a layered approach, a holistic approach, and why this really matters in understanding a broader context in which energy healing can be contemporary and why it can be so effective when done well.
If you're curious to learn more about this approach for yourself, we have an EHT 100 training upcoming starting September 6th, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in the episode. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Future of Wellness, exploring self-transformation and holistic healing to unlock your inner potential. Hosted by Christabel Armsden and Keith Parker.
In this episode, we're going to talk a bit about how energy healing is multidimensional and alive, not a one size fits all kind of modality. And this is a common misconception that there's just one thing that energy healing means.
I really enjoy this aspect because what we're really saying is no two sessions are ever the same. No two people or moments of healing are the same. So in this work, we're not relying on a singular protocol, a singular technique, but as Keith is sharing, it's relational, layered, and very much alive. So that exploration of the field and what's happening in the present moment is really a way of relating, of listening, and of holding space for intelligent change.
So, in this episode, we're going to give a kind of an insight and an insider's perspective on what Christabel and I understand in doing facilitation in the context of energy healing. Sometimes that's in the group field of the EHT, sometimes it's one on one with individual clients and other people. And we have developed our own styles in some ways, but we've also co developed a style through field dynamics.
In our approach, the field isn't just a metaphor, but it's this intelligent interface we learn to work with, we learn to navigate, through which deep transformation becomes possible. The field, as we call it, is not just the aura, but is in fact the whole interface of who and what we are. It holds the imprints of our story, our somatic patterning, our emotions, and our deeper intelligence. When we're engaging with somebody's field, we're not just sensing energy, but we're in fact listening to how the system is organizing. So you might say we're noticing coherence versus incoherence, stability versus flux.
Just as we have a physical body, we also have, you could say, an energy body, but it's an electromagnetic aspect to ourselves. And think of connecting to another person through this interface, through this energetic, electromagnetic, and very information rich interface. And so, as Christabel is saying, when you're learning to do facilitation work for others, or when you're learning to really tune into your own energy, what you're doing is settling into an observational perspective as to what are the thoughts, what are the emotions, what are the sensations in a very nuanced, energetic, and subtle way.
And this is why the field is our starting point, because it's actually reflecting the state of the whole being, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. So when we're meeting that starting point, that mirror, if you will, with presence, with neutrality, then something incredible happens, and it begins to effectively to self-reveal.
It might seem daunting initially for some people to learn to listen or interact at this level of energy. Some people alternatively are very familiar with this. It's a language that comes to them naturally. Nonetheless, that is the skill set we're talking about developing, is learning to listen to this subtle aspect in which mind, body, emotion are things that we're learning to actually sense the structure of, sense the movement of, and track the changes of.
Absolutely. So we're using this principle that energy is in fact information. And in that context, the field is revealing everything effectively. So it's the entryway, if you will, to understanding the whole person.
Often people think energy healing is one thing, i.e., you run energy, there's some kind of frequency, some kind of energetic transmission, so to speak, that's happening, and that's the one and only thing that a practitioner is doing. Now, some modalities, some approaches might isolate energy work to just running energy, but our approach as individuals and the way that we teach people in the HT is to have a layered approach.
Yeah, and this is why we might say that the art of healing isn't what you think. And we refer here to this art of layering, this ability or capacity to listen across dimensions in a very responsive, client centered way. So you might have heard the phrase healing isn't linear, right? It's not one dimensional. In any single session, be that within a group field or within a one-to-one experience, we're engaging as facilitators with the breath, with the body, with the emotions moving through, the beliefs, archetypes, all at once. So these aren't separate layers of information or intelligence, but we might say interwoven expressions of the same intelligence. And in this context, layering, or the art of layering as we might call it, suggests or reflects this fundamental skill set in listening across all of those expressions. So being able to feel into the rhythms, the emotional undertones, the movement, if you will. Some people refer to geometry, some people refer to colors, shapes, forms, memories, emotions. But fundamentally, it's just tuning in and learning to sense what's ready to shift.
And layering refers to stacking or creating a multi-sensory engagement with what is happening in the moment. So let's say you're working on some kind of area of blockage, you notice it because there is emotion coming up. What we want to do as facilitators is help to identify not only the emotion, but where is that emotion in the body? We also might want to look at what is the belief behind the emotion? Is there a kind of a belief structure? Is there a story or a memory associated with that emotion? Is there a relationship connected to that emotion? And as we become layered in our awareness of the different facets of the same thing, it starts to break apart more fully, more holistically, and then things start to change. And that's where facilitation, in the sense, is about navigation, meaning finding an area of blockage, and then tracking, meaning following where that blockage goes as it changes, as it moves, as new space is created.
So your aura, as it were, is reflecting more than your mood, right? It's actually holding your personal story. And in this sense, it's really important as facilitators that we're not looking to impose, we're not looking to diagnose, we're simply learning to listen and to listen deeply. So this is not about telling somebody what's wrong with them, giving them a metaphysical diagnosis, as it were, but instead it's actually about creating and holding a space as a facilitator where their system is able to surface its own truth. Often the most powerful breakthroughs come from what a client is experiencing in this held space, right? This is the idea of insights, of realizations. It's not coming from anything said or shared by the facilitator. It's not coming from an imposition or a diagnosis, but instead it's coming from holding this space with this sense of deep listening, of deep presence.
Yeah, and to add to that principle, like you're saying, is neutrality, is that deep listening, is not judging. And this is what's common to all space holding, all modalities, is to be a neutral witness to what is happening. And that's what allows things to change. So that's a key aspect of doing facilitation work, but also you're describing a client centered approach. This is something that we really emphasize as an approach to energy work that we think is most empowering to the client. So this would be client centered versus like a cliche that I would bring up is going to see a kind of crystal ball psychic who says, I'm looking into your energy, so to speak, and I see X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to tell you about you. We want to reverse that dynamic and have it be that the client is empowered to self-discovery. So as facilitators, we're learning to find things, to help to point things out to the client, to help them to engage with things and to have their own insight, their own awareness as to the multi-layered structure of their system, of their blocks and what's changing.
So here we come to the importance of the group field and how the group field in our trainings amplifies healing, deepens these insights, and is really a foundational part of the EHT journey, not just as a container, but as a health space. When 8, 10, 12, 15 people come together, with Keith and I holding this space as facilitators, we have something greater than the sum of our individual parts or energy fields beginning to emerge. And this is inviting incredibly deep access to the subtle layers that we've been describing. In a group field, we get a true amplification of that exchange in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, you make a good point. A lot of people talk to us about this quite a bit. The difference between self practice, one on one sessions, and group sessions. And it is unmistakable how potent a group field is in comparison to one on one versus self practice. Now, it's not to say it's always better, but the pure horsepower, if you will, or potency is definitely amplified by quite a bit. Now, as facilitators, there's an interesting thing happening where when you work by yourself, of course, you are just sensing yourself. When you work with somebody else, you get a very clean interface back and forth between yourself and the client, and the reading, the tracking, the sensing is really, really clear. It can only be you or the other person, and discernment is a really, really big word here. But when you work with a group, something very different happens where a kind of an aggregate emerges, where as a facilitator, you're tracking the changes as a kind of an aggregation of the group's energies amalgamating into one. And the potency goes up, but also the tracking and the sensing is a little bit different.
So we might say that the group field is really helping to anchor and act really as quite a powerful mirror. So it's helping to surface relational dynamics, right? Our unconscious patterns, our deep-seated imprints, not in a sense of overwhelm, but with a chance to meet these things with clarity and support. So I like to think of the group field as serving as an amplifier. What you might not have sensed on your own becomes clearer within this group frequency, which can really deepen your perception and sharpen your subtle tracking as a client or as a facilitator. But one of the core skills that we're teaching is actually how to recognize and cultivate this coherence, not just individuals, but within the context of this shared field. And this is really vital for practitioners because healing really doesn't happen in isolation. It's arising in relationship. So learning to sense that difference and learning to help hold that space. And of course, it's our role as facilitators to hold that group field in this context. But we're really helping to facilitate some deep change and transition within that container. And it's important to note that we actually keep the group field of the EHT programs intentionally small. So we're ensuring that that field stays intimate, energetically supported, and safe, to use a crucial word.
Yeah, and I like that you're saying how healing is often relational, and we all know this, that you can't do it by yourself. There are certain aspects of your own self-growth that will only come as a result of working through issues and dynamics with others. And so what one of the advantages and amazing things that happens in the group field is the reflective or mirroring properties in which what's happening in the overall group, some issue may arise in somebody's system, and then the group is reflective of that. And then you, as part of that group, gets to have the way in which you sympathetically resonate, you empathically connect with that kind of issue arising in somebody else's system to in some way activate or initiate movements within your own system in relation to that. So there's something amazing about talking about it in the context of relationships. I really like that point.
It's showing us how to listen beyond ourselves, right? So it's inviting attunement, but also humility and energetic responsibility. I always like that by the end of the training, most participants are sharing how the group field became one of their greatest sources of insight, right? The depth of connection that they experienced in that context really surprised them.
And also, another thing that often comes across is how enjoyable it is to do one on one sessions with people, and that it is surprisingly satisfying how connected, intimate, insightful it is to do healing work for other people. Many people don't know this until they try it, is that they might be intimidated by quote unquote doing a healing session for somebody else, keeping their own ego in check, not feeling like they're a healer, so to speak, which is why, of course, we like to use the term facilitation. There's something about holding space for other people that is sacred, that is profound. And in doing so, you often gain something amazing that has its own healing component for yourself as well.
So, the beauty about energy healing, it really has a sense of purpose and position within what we might refer to as more mainstream healing. When energy work is part of this layered experience, right, then whilst it isn't here to replace therapy or coaching or body work, it really does enhance it. So it acts on its own as a very powerful tool, and it also integrates beautifully with these other modalities and toolkits that people like to explore. So, what the energy healing does from this layered perspective, from this very universal full field healing, is to help reveal the dimensions that maybe talk or touch alone might miss.
Different kinds of therapeutic or healing modalities where there's somewhat of an isolation as to the engagement with the therapeutic process, or maybe it's multi pronged in two or three different layers, right? When you really open things up and you include energy to body, breath, emotions, mind, and all the subtle in betweens, and you can kind of put those under one umbrella, which is what we attempt to do in teaching facilitation and in doing facilitation. Energy healing rises as this deeply integrative kind of approach. And we think that really the future of wellness in general is something where we see deeper levels and layers of integration in different modalities. So, integrating energy work with other things that you're doing or that exist is a real opportunity, and something that I have some confidence that in the coming decades will find its way into more mainstream contexts.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like that aha moment for yourself or when you're working with somebody, when somebody feels the emotional or energetic signature that's under a particular postural position, right? A certain crook in the neck or a certain holding in the jaw, or the ancestral imprint that lies behind a belief, something that's really been limiting a person for a long time. Everything starts to make more sense. So it's really beautiful to think of energy healing in this way, again, as we might say the connective tissue between modalities, right? It's linking the parts that we are already working with, is linking the body, the psyche, the spirit into a coherent whole. So imagine, say, a psychotherapist who can track the subtle shifts in their client's field, right? Not just their words. Or a body worker who can feel when emotion is stored in the tissue, or a coach who can sense the client's system come into alignment as they're naming or identifying a particular goal that they have in mind. So, this is where healing becomes really multidimensional, and it's where true integration can happen.
We do really think that the interest in holistic medicine is leading us down a path where the aura, the energy field, understanding it and working with it will become an integral part of the future of medicine. Hopefully, what we've discussed to you today has enriched your understanding of energy healing and specifically that of facilitation. We do have an EHT coming up, our long form comprehensive training that is transformation first, skill development second. It starts this September. And if your curiosity is piqued, feel free to check out our website and look at all the details.
Whether you choose to continue this journey with ourselves or with other modalities and holistic practices, really important to remember in the context that healing isn't only about technique, that it's also about feeling safe enough to let go. So looking for shared fields and connections that are building trust, connection, presence, and deep witnessing. And that's really going to help bring this multi-layered, rich aspect of healing to the foreground. Thanks for being a part of the Future of Wellness. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more people and to make great episodes like this one. Learn more about field dynamics and why we think the future of wellness matters. Check us out at energyfielddynamics.com. See you next time.